Ooh.
Hi, and welcome to the video where I will be teaching you how to get started playing Fallen Angel Hell Survival. Okay, so after launching the game we get to the main menu. This is where you set up your new game world or load a saved one that you have already been playing. Note that the settings such as gameplay options, graphics, audio, keybinds are accessed from the pause menu while the game is running. So from here, if we are starting a new game, we type in a new name for it in the Name a New World field. I will call this one Getting Started. We can also enter a world seed, which will determine the shape of the terrain. Beware, of course, that not all number ranges will be good, because you could end up starting the game in lava. But to guarantee that doesn't happen, you can just leave the world seed at default setting of 0. If you want to load an already saved game, simply select your world from the saved worlds list and press the play button. But for this video, I am creating a new game, so I press create. So before I start playing, let's look at the pause menu. Here we have continue, options, controls, and the easily missed tutorial button and save and quit. Continue obviously closes the menu and unpauses the game. Options allows you to configure your gameplay, audio, and graphics. Controls, which allows you to rebind your keys and most importantly discover what actions you can actually perform in the game. Spells are important, okay? Tutorial, which shows and explains the basics of survival, building, crafting, magic, and combat. Save and quit, which funny enough actually saves your game and then quits out to the main menu. So what is this game about? Fallen Angel Hell Survival is what is considered to be part of the open world survival craft game genre. So it's a sandbox game where you can do whatever you like while trying to survive. You survive by not getting killed by enemies or the environment and by maintaining your hunger levels. So you will need to hunt for food. Also, to maintain your magicka, aka mana, for magical abilities and spells, because you are a blood-drinking she-devil, you also need to do that. For food, you can eat raw meat that fills your hunger and provides a bit of blood, or you can cook the meat which fills your hunger even more but provides no blood. You can eat hearts that provide some blood and little food. You can also obtain a plasma fruit which also provides some blood and little food. But for the best bloodthirst quencher is crafting a blood bottle bag out of a heart and animal pelt. Animal pelts can be harvested from goats and hellhounds. Also, they can turn up in dropped loot. But as well as staying alive and keeping your magic charged, you can find and mine materials to craft gear, placeables, and build things. So this game is all about survival, exploration, combat, mining, crafting, and building to your heart's content. And what better place to do it than in hell? And don't worry, because if you die, you respawn, but you may lose a lot of your inventory, especially if you can't find the way back to where you died. And you always respawn back where you started the game, unless you craft a bed and set it to become your new spawn point. So how do we play it? When you land in hell, first things first are crafting your first set of tools. You will need a wooden staff, a stone pickaxe, a stone axe, and a stone hunting knife. Although you can attack bare-handed, a wooden staff is better for combat. The stone pickaxe you will need for mining stone to craft things, especially cobblestone, building blocks so you can start building a home, and it's also handy for mining minerals like iron and coal and titanium and brimstone. The stone axe so you can chop trees, logs and planks to craft things. And the stone hunting knife so that you can harvest specific corpses like goats, hellhounds, giant spiders and Shuman demons. Now if you are not unlucky, you might have all the parts needed for your first set of tools right near you where you start that game. Otherwise, you will need to look around for rocks on the ground and sticks near trees. You will need to split a rock into 2 stone shards. A way to do this is grab one and bash it against the other one on the floor. To drop an item on the floor, it needs to be in your inventory tool belt at the bottom of the screen. Just select it and hit whatever drop item key you have assigned to into the controls settings. Once we have all the parts needed, we craft our first set of tools. It's handy to get using the axe first, because then you can chop a tree, because sticks can be hard to find sometimes. Chop a log to get planks. Chop planks to get sticks. Use a pickaxe on boulders to get more rocks. Rocks can be used to craft a lot of things. If you want to prioritize making a building first so you can keep safe at night and store your equipment, you'll want to make some cobblestone building blocks first. Make some foundation blocks for starting it on the ground, and then some regular blocks to build the rest of your first room. To mine, you can simply hold down the attack button, which is left mouse by default, so you don't have to keep spamming it. As you place items in the crafting window, you will see recipes appear on the left hand side showing you what you can make using the items you have placed out. It's not about how many items you have in a stack, but how many you have spread out in the crafting window. For example, a cobblestone block needs 4 rocks. So you don't use a stack of 4 rocks, but you spread them out instead. And you can split a stack by right-clicking them. You can also craft an entire stack by holding Shift when you select the recipe. To save you guessing, you can consult the crafting recipe book, which lists all of the items you can craft from your inventory. There are also ways to craft things using blacksmithing with a workbench, smelter and an anvil, and you will need a hammer for that. Metal tools are of course much better and work faster than stone tools. Now for combat and magic. To attack enemies in melee, simply line the eye in the center of the screen up with your target and press the attack button. You can simply hold down the attack button to keep thrusting at your target so you don't have to keep spamming it. You can also block incoming hits using your block button, which is the right mouse button by default. Some enemies are easy to block and others are very difficult depending on their size, shape and the way they move. You also need to line the eye in the middle of the screen up with your target for it to work. To use magic, you will need to bring up the spell wheel and select your spell and use your cast spell key to cast them. Don't forget to check your controls to learn which keys you need to use. Some spells can be cast with a single press and some require that you hold down the key. The spells available are Fireball, which is your default combat spell for hurling balls of fire at things. Healing, which of course heals you. See Aura, which shows you all nearby enemies. Consume Life, which lets you suck the health out of your victim and use it to raise your own health. And Invisibility, which allows you to go invisible to most enemies. However, some enemies, including other devils, can see you. You will stay invisible and move around as much as you like, but as soon as you perform an action, the spell ends. Stat bars. The stat bars at the lower sides of the screen from left to right in order are your health, magicka, bloodthirst and hunger. Obviously, if your health runs out, you die. If your magicka runs out, you can't use your magic abilities and spells. If your bloodthirst runs out, you cannot regenerate magicka, and if your hunger bar runs out, you begin to starve to death. Things you can consume to maintain your stat bars are things like raw meat, cooked meat, hearts, plasma fruit, blood butter bags and potions. Meat can be cooked on a campfire that you can craft. To get cooking, you need a spit made of 3 sticks, some more sticks for fuel, and a raw piece of meat. On the topic of raw meat, it's also handy to know that hellhounds can be tamed by feeding them raw meat. Having a hellhound fighting alongside of you is very helpful. If you kill a beast with a harvestable corpse, you can then use it to harvest the corpse for items you need to survive, such as meat, hearts, and animal pelts. You'll need to craft a hunting knife for that. Right, now let's talk about building. So to begin building buildings, we need blocks, rather a lot like Lego. To start off, we need foundation blocks, which are essentially a double block to start building off the ground. You can use these for your entire foundation or floor plan, if you like, or just place a few of them and then use regular cube blocks to carry on building the rest. If you place a block by mistake, you can simply remove it with a pickaxe. You can also repair blocks with a hammer. You can use hammers to rotate blocks if you are unhappy with their position. You can get as creative as you like with this. But I recommend first building just a room so you can seal yourself inside at night so that no tormented souls can get to you. It's also fun to build the roof out of brimstone and set it on fire when they come. To keep myself occupied at night, I like to craft and place a workbench so I can sculpt stone molds to use for smelting metals later. And you'll be glad to know that you can craft many placeable objects that can be used to store your inventory. Placing objects. To start placing a placeable object you have crafted, you put them in the inventory tool belt at the bottom of the screen, make sure it's selected, and then press the use key, which is the E key by default. That will bring up the ghost of your placeable ready to place. If it's green, it's okay to place down, but if it's red, then it's not okay. You can rotate the object clockwise and anti-clockwise by using the left and right mouse buttons. Once you are happy with its position, then press the use key again to actually place it down. Some objects require that they are placed on walls, such as wall shelves and torches. When exploring Hell, a handy thing to craft for the map is the landmark sign. It's easy to see from a distance, and it has an icon that shows up on the map. Blacksmithing. So to begin crafting metal items such as tools, weapons and armor, we need some blacksmithing equipment. First thing you will need is a workbench. On the workbench you can sculpt molds out of rocks. The molds are used to cast metal parts and ingots in the smelter. The first molds I recommend sculpting are a bunch of iron ingots to build an anvil, so that you can actually forge what tool and weapon parts you cast later. To use a smelter, you need to make sure its fuel compartment is loaded with coal, and that the front is loaded with some metal ore you need to smelt the item you have created the mold for. For example, if you are wanting to use an iron pickaxe head mold to make an iron pickaxe head, then you obviously will need some iron ore placing in the front of the smelter. You can remove any ore that is already in the smelter to replace it with a different type. Some smelted items will need forging on the anvil, so to do that, simply place them on the anvil and start hitting it with a hammer until it's finished. Armor is generally crafted from animal pelts and metal ingots. Okay, now it's time for you to get out there, explore Hell, and make some enemies.